Chapter 10: The End of the Line. By November of 2020, 22 of the new Type 14 cars were now in active service on the Orange Line. With deliveries of the new cars now in full swing, the MBTA began to start retiring the Type 12 fleet in slow increments. By December of 2020, 6 cars had been retired. By February of 2022, 16 cars were retired. Since the new cars were being delivered each month and space within Wellington Yard was running out, the crews moved the 16 retired cars to a siding on the north side of Wellington's yard. The siding was given the name the Scrap Line, since it was where the cars that were awaiting scrapping were being stored for the time being. During this time, I took up the opportunity of a lifetime to explore the Scrap Line hands-on. Exploring the Scrap Line was a truly surreal experience, and with the exploration came a deeper understanding of how the cars were assembled and how critical components functioned. I took this time to document them, as this would be the only time something like this would ever happen. Skipping ahead again, by July of 2022, more than 30 of the Type 12s were retired from active service and were now awaiting scrapping. During this time, the MBTA awarded a contract to Costello Dismantling to remove all 120 cars in 4 groups of 30. By July of 2022, 50 cars of the Type 14s were now in active service, 50 of which were having serious mechanical and safety issues, causing the entire fleet to be pulled from service repeatedly. Unfortunately, when the MBTA made the contract for the new Orange Line cars, they chose the lowest bidder out of the bunch to cut costs as they were already in a significant amount of debt. The builder, CRRC, who was chosen to manufacture the cars, had no prior experience or track record of building rail cars within the US. What came of this was years worth of manufacturing and maintenance problems with the new cars.
Orange Line trains taken out of service over noise concerns.
Surveillance video shows the moment an Orange Line train derails at the Wellington station. Watch closely as it comes around the corner. The MBTA blames pads on the train that wore faster than the T expected that they would. Those new Orange and Red Line trains are out of service until the problem can be fixed.
The MBTA is pulling all its new Orange Line cars off the tracks because of a brake problem on one train. The T says the trains will be out of service until it can pinpoint and fix the problem.
Leah, the T just confirmed all of the new Orange and Red Line cars have been pulled. Again, this after they say an out-of-service car had a battery failure while in the rail yard. Engineers now working to figure out the root cause of that. This is at least...
It was later revealed in 2023 that the CRRC factory in Springfield, Massachusetts, where the new fleet was being manufactured, was suffering from rushed construction that resulted in improper installation of critical components of the cars. This resulted in mechanical issues that jeopardized not only the safety of the public, but the operators as well. Fortunately, the MBTA still had the old Type 12s, although they were being held together by 15 years worth of cost-effective patchwork that was finally starting to corrode away. On January 31st, 2022, door E2 on a southbound Type 12 car failed to close and remained open while the train was in motion between the stations of Malden Center and Sullivan Square, when finally the entire train was taken out of service. The individual car was inspected closely, and the problem was determined to be ice buildup on the door tracks along the floor of the car. By this point, the public was beginning to show their frustration and fear of riding the MBTA due to the major safety incidents that were beginning to pile up, although this would not be the worst of them, as another horrific and tragic incident on the Red Line would occur in May of 2022.
A routine ride to work on the Red Line turned into a horrific death for Robinson Lawlin. Last April, his arm got stuck in the door as he left the train. Then it pulled away, dragging Robinson more than 100 feet to his death. It says the operator failed to double-check if the platform and subway were clear of any passengers. The complaint adds the MBTA didn't properly inspect subway car doors and alarm systems.
Turning our attention back to the Type 12s, finally, on July 15th, 2022, lead car 1250, traveling southbound to Forest Hills, caught fire while passing over the Dana Bridge between the stations of Wellington and Assembly, with thick black smoke billowing high into the air. Being caught by someone staying at the Encore Casino, The massive blaze sent passengers into a mass panic, smashing windows and dropping down an 8-foot drop onto the tracks with power to the third rail still live. One female passenger on board jumped off of the Dana Bridge into the Mystic River and swam to shore. Other passengers who decided not to do that followed the emergency evacuation instructions and were forced to walk back to Wellington. The entire incident caused a lot of media attention and scrutiny of the MBTA's safety and operational practices. The MBTA did disclose what the cause of the fire was, as well as surveillance footage was released as well. The MBTA stated that the fire was caused after a loose piece of the side skirt on 1250's front left corner dangled above the third rail, eventually making contact, sparking and causing the entire undercarriage to be set on fire. By this point, the public was really speaking out about the incident and drawing even more scrutiny and concern about the safety and reliability of the system. By this point, the Federal Transit Administration was conducting its investigation into the MBTA's overall operations amid the countless incidents on the system. Following the July 15th fire, the FTA had discovered that the MBTA's practices were jeopardizing not only the public, but operators and track workers as well. Later in July of 2022, the FTA submitted its final report on the MBTA. Included within this report was a list of items that would need to be addressed within the next few months if the MBTA were to continue operating without full oversight of the FTA. Given the pressure from the feds and the public, the MBTA decided to do something extreme.
Today we're announcing plans to accelerate major track and maintenance work on the Orange Line during a 30-day shutdown of the entire line from 9 p.m. on August 19th through September 18th, with service resuming on Monday, September 19th.
On August 3rd, 2022, a press briefing was held at Wellington where then Governor Charlie Baker and the general manager of the MBTA, Steve Povtak, announced an unprecedented month-long shutdown of the entire Orange Line, beginning on August 19th and going until September 19th. The shutdown would allow the MBTA to complete a mile-long list of track and infrastructure upgrades that otherwise would have taken years to complete in just 30 days. Some of the work that was included in the shutdown was track work along areas with speed restrictions no more than 10 miles per hour, tie and joint replacements, signal upgrades, and station sanitization and cleaning. With this massive announcement now official, rumors began brewing within the railfan community that August 19th would be the last day the Hawkers would run in revenue service. People such as myself dismissed these rumors as just speculation, since at the time the track record of the Type 14s was not the greatest, since the mechanical and safety issues were being discovered almost on the daily. I specifically believe that all the manufacturing and quality control issues with the Type 14s would not be resolved by the time the Orange Line would reopen on September 19th. Unfortunately, that speculation would turn out to be true. On August 19th, 2022, the last set of 1200 series cars ran in revenue service with the consist of 1226, 1227, 1319, 1318, 1286, and 1287, making its last revenue run from Oak Grove Station to Forest Hills. Once reaching Forest Hills, the car was moved into the Forest Hills layover yard, where it would sit with the others while the line closed for the month-long shutdown. Let's quickly turn our attention to transit preservation. For the past 80 years, the MBTA, formerly the MTA, and before that, the Boston Elevated Railway, had donated most of their older retired rolling stock to the Seashore Trolley Museum in Kennebunkport, Maine. Fans and enthusiasts of the MBTA had always counted on the Seashore Trolley Museum to preserve older transit rolling stock and history. The Seashore Trolley Museum even had bits and pieces of the Washington Street Elevated after it had been demolished back in 1987, with the head house from Dudley and Northampton stations being stored on the property. In 2009, the Seashore Trolley Museum received a few more trains from the MBTA. Boeing LRV streetcar number 3424 from the Green Line, and Hawker Siddeley Type 4 cars 623 and 622 from the Blue Line. Given the past acquisitions of old MBTA equipment, the railfan and train community within Boston began to hope that a pair of the Type 12s on the Orange Line would go to the Seashore Trolley Museum and be preserved. As I talked with people who were directly involved with the Type 12 acquisition within Seashore, they told me that cars 1252 and 1253 were selected as the cars that would be sent to Seashore, as they were the two cars that were in the best condition out of the entire fleet. When word was received that Seashore had done all the things necessary to acquire 52 and 53, the railfan community and myself breathed a sigh of relief that another piece of Boston Transit history was being preserved. Unfortunately, this relief would soon turn to grief. A few months following the news, I received word from my contact that the 12 acquisition had fallen through. Due to a disagreement between management at the Seashore Trolley Museum, they ultimately rejected the acquisition of the 12s, and 1252 and 1253 were sent to Costello Dismantling, where they were destroyed on the property and ceased to exist, sealing the preservation fate of the Type 12s. Following the reopening of the Orange Line on September 19th, the public was pleased to hear that all the trains running on the Orange Line were the new Type 14 fleet. This decision, of course, came as an unfortunate change for the community who enjoyed riding and documenting the old Type 12s. During the shutdown, the crews at Wellington laid out all the cards on the table and had to decide what they were going to do when service resumed. The final verdict of this meeting was that they would run service with only the new cars. This choice to exclusively use the new cars was made out of safety. The crews at Wellington were faced with an ultimatum. As someone in my comments section of a previous video stated, either we continue running the 12s to keep people like Nick happy, or resume service with new cars and keep the system safe with cars that are newer, safer, and more reliable. A few days following the reopening of the Orange Line, on September 22, 2022, scrapping of the Type 12s began, with cars 1238 and 1239 being loaded onto flatbed trucks and shipped to Costello Dismantling, where they would be cut up. By January of 2023, 72 out of the 120 cars had been removed from the property and scrapped. Although the Orange Line was now running with just the new cars and scrapping had already been well underway, the remaining 48 Type 12s on Wellington's property were still listed as active on the NE Transit MBTA fleet roster page, or the website where the MBTA's fleet inventory is listed and updated. The community surrounding the 12s at the time held high hopes that the cars would return to revenue service given their active status on the roster. However, nothing ever happened. This active service status would last for an incredibly long time until April of 2023, when the NE Transit roster page was updated, listing all the remaining 48 Type 12s as out of service and awaiting disposition. Hey, Post Editor Nick here with a surprising new update on the Type 12s. On March 27, 2024, scrapping of the Type 12s officially resumed, with cars 1292 and 1293 being loaded onto flatbed trucks and sent to Costello Dismantling. 1293 was even spotted on I-93 southbound by somebody, and they posted to Instagram, which was where I found out about this initially. People within my community Discord server confirmed this to be true by sending in pictures of Wellington, and it looks like the yard crews have moved all the remaining 46 cars to the furthest tracks within the yard so that they can continue removing the rest of them. Of course, with scrapping officially resuming now after almost a year of no updates regarding the fate of the 48 cars, it looks like the MBTA is finally ready to junk the remaining 12s. And well, of course, with these new updates regarding scrapping, there have been yet again rumors regarding the preservation fate of a pair. There has been discussion within my comments section that an operator on the Orange Line has alleged that a pair will be rehabbed and saved. However, I personally highly doubt this. Of course, we will just have to see what happens, but as far as I know, the remaining 46 cars will be scrapped by mid-summer of 2024, if not sooner. But only time will tell.